Greetings everyone on YouTube and welcome back to Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition with me, Kemsit, and of course this content creator interview video with the author Sn0wsh00. Now he's not lively here and neither will you guys be hearing him, of course, because he's not really willing to do one with his own voice, which is also just fine, and I respect it and all that. But I am also very grateful that he has sent me the list with the answers, which I'm going to be reading it out loud while he's asking my questions. And I'm going to also be sending the list down below in the comments box below for you guys to read it through about what he has also said. But I'm going to make it look very lively as possible to pique you guys' interest, and while you just tap on and just go play forward, because it's always nice and interesting to see what these creators have in mind, and also offer guidelines and of course share their opinions about the game overall, the DLCs, etc., their entire adventure as they've created and are very ambitious, of course. And yeah, let's just go for it. The first question I asked: what sparked your interest in creating custom campaign or scenarios? Was there a particular game or moment that hooked you, or a certain historical figure, perhaps community, that inspired you? Now, this is his answer. I've always liked modding games, and creating custom Age of Empires 2 campaigns is just an extension of that interest. I've also created random map scripts and data mods. I had previously used StarCraft, Star Edition level editor, so when I started playing AoE 2, I naturally gravitated towards that game's scenario editor. This was all over 20 years ago. At first, I created a scenario pitting overpowered heroes against hordes of enemies, which helped me familiarize myself with the scenario editor. This eventually got me into creating full campaigns. And that sounds very interesting, especially from someone who also comes from a different RTS game, especially StarCraft, because it is quite another competitive game there too, and a rival to Age of Empires, but overall it has also very interesting mechanics and way of playing compared to Age of Empires 2, and especially the second one. I personally did not like this first one, but because it's a very old way to playing through and all, but it's still fun. I enjoyed it, and I'm glad that you've joined it and also have been able to go through your first steps by making a very overpowered hero and then go through waves of enemies. It's like a tower defense kind of scenario, but it's interesting. So far I've released 3 campaigns to the public. The Rise of the General Passad, which we can see over here. Douglas Giliassi Golden Chancellor, which I've also played, so feel free to check out. And it's, in my opinion, one of your best creations so far. The first 2 campaigns were originally released in 2011 and were remastered together in 2021. Douglas Giliassi was released in 2022. Now that's of course true. There was also the fall of General Passad. And honestly, I think these are, even though they're remastered, so far I've still seen not many people did really like them, and I've not personally played them as well, so I'm just skipping them myself. My apologies. Maybe I'll touch them one day, I'm not sure, but I still think that this one is very much better. And yeah, you'll have to forgive me for that, but like I said, this one is very fun. I've enjoyed it. It could definitely use different adjustments in my opinion here and there, like I've also stated before. Not sure if you read the comments that I've also written there, but just feel free to check it out and all. And everyone else, feel free to try it out as well, because in my opinion this attention that has been given is not too much, especially for Douglas Giliassi the Golden Chancellor. And now moving on to question 2, where do you find most inspiration from? Perhaps certain games or books, movies, or real life events. My campaigns are based on a fictional alternative history universe I've been working on for years. While this universe is set thousands of years in the future, it is also meant to be very grounded and based on real life geographic and physics. For specific games, Payday 2 and to a lesser extent the Left 4 Dead series have been big influence in how I approach mapping. The maps are not particularly generated, but they still vary from playthrough to playthrough. I really appreciate Payday 2 in particular for allowing multiple pathways to complete haste, and B, allowing players to have a plan B if their primary objective failed. Overall, those games informed both the remaster of the Rise and Fall of the General Possad campaigns and Douglas Gyasi campaign. As for specific events, the fall of General Possad was influenced by the Franco-Prussian War. Like the Franco-Prussian War, that campaign features an empire attacking an alliance or a small states, which in turn leads to a war resulting in the empire's leaders getting overthrown and the smaller states uniting into a single entity. The Douglas Gyasi campaign also had a similar dynamics. Now that's very interesting. Intake of course, and also perspective, and almost I definitely respect and would highlight this. Like, I'm gonna read it through again. I really appreciate Payday 2 is particular for allowing multiple pathways to complete haste, and B, allowing players to have a plan B if their primary objective fails. Overall, those games inform both remaster of Rise and Fall of General Possad's campaigns and those of Douglas Gyasi campaign. Now, this is something very important because, in my opinion, it is a nice way of representing not only historical events, because many of those campaigns that I've played through, when I fail the primary objectives, there's no way I have like a go back, be it like the loss of a hero and all that. Sure, when throughout history, when a primary leader dies, the nation can go to catastrophe, but there's also at times that it didn't, that someone else picked up that mantle and they just led it forward, or it just went through, or the people just carried out that entire catastrophic time, right? And that is sometimes when I feel like lacking is a representation within that campaign, especially with the heroes, or a different way to try and beat the campaigns, because this is what we also at times see in the classic campaigns, but not in a custom campaign. And that's really very saddening. Let alone that there's always those side objectives that are very constructive towards the ending. There's also something that is very lacking, and it's also very good to have intake of a big nation declaring war on smaller ones, and then a whole coalition is going to be formed up against it. And it's something that is also not very much happening as well, right? That, like, I want to have these things to be presented more often, especially with the campaigns that have been created so far. But that's just an intake, and I definitely respect and even admire your intake in it, and the what should I say, method of having such a mindset, honestly. But yeah, so feel free for everyone just to take this as guidelines as well. I highly, like I said, highlight this and would encourage to do so. As for question 3, can you tell us about one of your favorite creations? Now, here's his answer. I created a stealth section of the Rise of General Possad campaign, where a countdown timer would be triggered when a guard spots your spies. It was inspired by the Hand of Daughter scenario from the Forgotten version of the Sn0wsh00 campaign. Though unlike the Forgotten scenario, the stealth is entirely optional. You can take a look at the stealth scenario here. Of course, there's also a link to that on the video, of course. And I do remember there's like a nice Sn0wsh00 campaign, and even I've seen some other campaigns creators have been using these things too. For example, I remember out of my head, which campaign was it? But it wasn't much of a timer, I think. There was, I forgot what the name was, but I remember when there was a campaign. I kind of come into my way, but there are some people who have been using these kind of mechanics, or used some kind of stealth missions as well. For example, I do remember one out of my head, Christopher's campaign with Sn0wsh00. I think it was his first mission, that you try to escape as Sn0wsh00 through some guards and all that. You could also capture gold and all that, but that was very interesting. No, I think it was the original campaign with Sn0wsh00 from the DLC of Three Kingdoms. I think that one was it. And remember, I'm mixing, like I said, but there are these people who are using it, and I definitely admire, even would encourage people to do that too. It's always cool. Question 4. What is your most favorite campaign from the classics? Now, here's his answer. I really liked how the Barbarossa campaign had some relatively unique objectives, such as converting the Milan Cathedral or building wonder inside Venice. It was nice to have something other than defeat enemy X for any change. Well, that's exactly true. Innovative missions, a bit of diversity and all that. I definitely also enjoyed the Cathedral, but won the victory. Again, my most hated thing, especially like defending certain positions or just a waiting game. It's gonna be very boring. And it's always hard to balance these kind of missions out because you're going to be trying to reach for wider audiences, and it is also very difficult for anyone to try and beat through or hit the right buttons, right? So yeah. Question 5. What is your most favorite custom campaign scenario? It can be your own or that of someone else. And he says, I haven't played many custom scenario campaigns, but I really enjoyed a Young Hun 2's Republic Rebirth of the Colosseum scenario. I will talk about this scenario more in a later question. As for my own scenario, I think my favorite is a few more favors missions from the... Wait, what? I think my favorite is the A Few More Favors mission from the Douglasik Yossi campaign. It does some world building by traveling to various locales around the world. It refers certain meta tactics such as deer pushing and fighting knights with crossbow. And finally, it makes you feel like Yossi is getting away with what he has done in the previous scenario, at least until the very end. I kind of agree with that. I definitely enjoyed how you've done the Douglasik campaign in such manners, especially with like a lot of diverse missions and innovative ones. Some are definitely for sure challenging, and there was also quite a bit of challenges there, especially when you could try to capture villages as well, growing your influence, etc. It felt really cool, honestly. And those metas, of course, very good, and not too challenging in my opinion. So yeah. As for question 6, what have been the most challenging moments in your journey as a custom campaign or scenario creator, and how did you overcome them? AI scripting was probably the most challenging part of the campaign creation. Now that's something we have definitely heard in the previous videos as well. I think especially Sir Godo has struggled with that too. When I genuinely created the General Passat campaign back in 2011, I used the Alliance through the Empire AI script, a script that was designed for random matches, not for campaigns. I overcame this challenge by realizing that campaign AI scripts don't have to be as complex as random AI scripts, and the triggers can do many of the last actions as the AI. Learning about the AI scripts will affect the set single command, where also game changes. Yeah, exactly. Especially if you're going to use the set single command for like your allies AI to attack certain positions or very user and changes very much instead of constantly saying like 31, like attack an enemy now command, or yeah, having the automatically attack anyone at sight, etc. So it is definitely a game changer. Question 7. Have you collaborated with other creators? If yes, what tips would you give for successful partnership in the community? If no, would you be up for collaborations? He says, I have not collaborated with other creators, and unfortunately, because I don't think I have the same passion for creating scenarios based on real life events as I do with my fictional universe, I do not think I'll be up for any further collaborations. Future collaborations. Now I understand that, and I respect it too. It's just a pity. I would have definitely encouraged to try it out as well, because there's no hurt in trying out, right? But it's a choice. As for question 8, what advice would you give to someone who just starts out in custom campaign scenario creations? Now, this is what he says. Begin by making short test scenarios where you can see for yourself how all the triggers affect diplomacy, etc. Work. A big part of modding is simply getting familiar with the rules and workflow. Now, that is something definitely I agree. It is something many of the other creators have also encouraged. Just try something out no matter what. Even if you just like create these small scenarios just for yourself behind the scenery, or just push something out to the public and be like, hey, this is what I created, and feel free to tell it, but I'm just new, so be more rational than just judgmental. Um, Question 9. When you design a scenario or campaign, what comes first for your gameplay-wise challenge? Storytelling, historical accuracy, or fun, and why? Now, this is what it says. I think fun should be the main focus for custom campaigns. For example, the 2013 Forgotten campaign are technically marvels with fascinating stories. The main thing I remember from them are the overly long cutscenes, enemy spam, and being railroaded into specific choices, all of which is detracted from my enjoyment. Now, exactly. This is what I have been outing so many times throughout my journey within the custom campaign scenario community. I've always been saying, guys, fun is the main element of gaming. Now, these custom campaigns within the RTS game, because it's a real-time strategy game, it already speaks out for itself, means that you're trying to implement and represent a certain community, or a culture, or a nation, or someone else within the past according to your opinion or sources. They can be wrong, they can be right, that is another debate. But when you try to do that, you gotta try to do it accurately. Sure, you can bend the rules a bit, sure, you can make it challenging, but bear in mind, the more challenging you make, the less audience you'll be reaching. Sure, there are always those who enjoy big challenges and all that, but try to balance it out through standard, moderate, and hard. If you're not going to do that, I'm sorry, but you're not going to reach a high audience. Sure, if you're a Chinese player, Chinese creator, and already have your Chinese audience, go for it. But notice there's always a bigger audience you can reach, bigger interactions, and people you can admire, and possibilities to have. But then again, it's your choice. And it is just saddening that these potentials and things are not just being done, right? And, you're just gonna make people, whenever you create these kind of campaigns, especially when you're just, be spamming out a lot of campaigns, you're just gonna make the other creators feel like, hey, there's already a campaign about it, why would I bother? Well, in my opinion, just do it. It's going to be offering more competitive views of like, hey, this is how it could be done better, and all that, and more fun. So don't feel like reluctant to create a different perspective of that campaign, right? Because you want to make those campaign fascinating stories about certain historical figures, historical communities, or whatever you want. And yeah, that is why I've been voicing out, and it's really good to have another similar mindseted person like you, Sn0wsh00. So yeah, but I definitely agree. The Forgotten Empires I've never forgotten, because even back in 2013, even earlier, I used to, played it out a lot, and done a lot of gaming multiplayer in game at times. Like, it was very fun, of course, at that time. And yeah, I fully agree that those cutscenes can be very lengthy and all that. And now that they've also brought it here in Definitive Edition, it was a bit lesser and all that. So yeah. But moving on. Question 10. What tools, triggers, or editors features do you rely on most, and which ones do you wish were improved? Bringing object to area is probably the condition I use the most in my scenarios. As to what tool can be improved, I think the advanced Gani editor 3's usability can be improved. This is where I want to shout out Smithbox, a modding tool for Elden Ring, Dark Souls, and other from software games more specifically. I want to focus on Smithbox Param editor, which is essentially the age equivalent in From Software modding. Like in AoE2, data mods in From Software games also override the base data file. What I like about the Param editor is how you can improve and export data as CSV files, which makes updating the merging mods less tedious. The Param editor also shows what default values are and can compare field values of different rows. Finally, In Smithbox, you can see where else in the data file and a row is being referenced. To put this in Age of Empires 2 terms, imagine if you can right-click an entry under the Effects tab and see which tech use that effect. That's essential that you can do in Smithbox. Now, this sounds very, how should I say, confusing for those who do not know the editor, especially for me. But from what I understand over here, that there's definitely a simple tool or editor software which is better in a other game, in other games for example, and could be implemented in Age of Empires 2 as well to make certain files more better to be replaced, and of course to have more visual regarding what text etc as well. So it'll be very cool if those were implemented inside this game as well. But yeah, that's just how should I say, is you know, up to the creators, of course, if they want to add it and all that. But I don't know, maybe someone else from the previous creators could just comment on what they think about this too, and if they know about it and if they agree with it. But this is definitely a nice wide information over here, and very good. Question 11. Has player feedback ever made you rethink or redesign a scenario, and can you share us example? Now, most player feedback I've received involve technical glitches and difficulty. For example, YouTuber King G2Y Y2Ye also streamed Douglas DLC campaign, and their playthrough helped highlight some AI and map issues I had to fix. I've also tweaked the difficulty for the General Passat campaign on feedback, and I certainly will take into account your difficulty related comments as well if I ever opted the DLC campaign. However, I've never had to complete or redesign a scenario based on player feedback. Now, once again, shout out to King Y2G, another custom campaign scenario player, and overall just a gamer. And I'm glad that you're also willing to tweak and redesign certain things, especially on difficulty. Like I said, Douglas Chaos Golden Chancellor does have a little bit of some challenging things and a few bugs that I also encountered. I think it was also in Mission 4 that you also need to check out. So yeah, and by all means, I wouldn't want you to redesign anything entirely, because not only would it be taxing and would be very nice to do, especially if one requested that's just a little bit absurd, but it's very important to make it very playable for wider audiences as well, like I said. Question 12. How do you approach balancing difficulties so a custom campaign and or scenario is challenging but still focus on the fun aspect for a wider audience? Now, I think it is good to give players different options at beating a scenario. For example, in the stealth scenario I mentioned earlier from General Passat campaign, the stealth section is entirely optional. If you complete the stealth section successfully, you'll be fighting a much weaker enemy. However, some players may find stealth too difficult, so I still give players the option to immediately start the battle. Now that's very good, because like I said, not everyone is very good with stealth missions or puzzling things. Even though I do not really see so much puzzling kind of elements as well in these custom campaigns, and it's also very important to offer options if you want to do those or not, and have a bit of balance, because if you're going to be rewarding those who finish the campaign, then you should also offer one for those who do not, because that would just only be fair. As for question 13, how do you think you've been doing within the Age of Empires 2 content creator community, and what would you tell your younger self if you had the chance? Now, AO2 modding was my main focus for only 2 years, from 2021 to 2023. The fact that YouTubers such as you are willing to play my campaign, and the fact that my Nomad Lakes random map script has been used in professional tournaments has been very flattering. Now, that's very important, because you also are a modder who created a lot of these tournament things as well. But again, I'm detaching myself from there. I'm not really approaching much about that. I've mainly approached you in regards to this custom campaign and scenario. But I definitely commend you on making these kind of maps. To also mention the the script as well. So keep it up, honestly. Further on, what he has answered is, I wish I could have told my younger self about immobile AI back in the CD days. Oh man, that's a very old times, man. I remember creating maps inspired by Barbarossa's mech scenario. Every time I tested them, though, the AI would immediately change their diplomatic stance to neutral and move their units around the map. In contract, units placed in the start edit stand still by default. It felt like the game was sabotaging my vision, and because of very little documentation back then, I had no idea this was an AI issue. This confusion definitely discouraged me from creating full campaigns with scenarios editor for a while. Ah, man. Ah, that's horrible, man. Sorry for laughing, honestly. I'm not making fun of you, but yeah. Yeah, no, it's just horrible. I wish you had that, knowledge as soon as possible, and it's very true. Lately, there's a lot more documentation and information on Google, especially YouTube, with these wonderful YouTubers, and who have been creating tutorials, and especially Aussie Empires, who's been doing it with these little Discords of helpful creators. Scriptures also inside it. So for those who've not been able to join it, shout out to them. Go to that Discord, check it out, check out Aussie and everyone else around there. And of course, to Sn0wsh00 as well. How do you see Age of Empires 2 DE its future? The classic campaign is set in West Africa, and I would have liked to use something other than the 3 African civilizations in my campaign. And of course, the Malian empires, let alone the Ethiopians and Berbers, were never centered around the modern Nigeria or Ghana. With the Lost Chieftain DLC revisiting South America, yeah, I'm a sort of optimistic that AoE 2 will finally return to Africa. Now, I honestly agree. Like I always said to all the other creators and the previous interviews, some were not very eager to see more civilizations, especially since the regards of balance, one. And second, they just find it too much. But I honestly say you can never have too much, because we all are a wide community, and there's a lot of people from all around the world, and they want their communities to be represented inside here too. So it will be only fair to have that. And I think Age of Empires is doing that good. Problem is, like I said, it is a matter of accuracy, one, and it's a matter of balancing. And if you want to also make them unique, because lately some people have been voicing it out that it feels like very copy paste and not very balanced. And like I said, the competitive side does not really like it, and I'm sorry, but it will just happen, and it's not something you're going to be able to stop for, because the people demand it. And of course, the company wishes it too, so that they can still get the money, whether it is to fill their pockets or whether they just need the money to continue on with the how should I say, development of the game. Because of course, as many of you know, no company will ever fix the game right away, as it will just be a death sentence according to them. I personally disagree, but that's just a fact. But yeah, like I said, I would definitely really like some more South American things and more civilizations, be it in Nigeria or Ghana or many of those other people around, be it like the Bantu people or something, or those areas, because Timbuktu is also a very or wait, not Timbuktu, but because that is actually pretty much Malians. I think it will be also have, for example, Zulu kind of people and all that, or any other nations. There's so many more. I just can't come within the names at the moment, but definitely those areas will be very good. Especially, for example, South Africa could be definitely having a lot as more, because Malians, Ethiopians, and Berbers, they're like one of them heavily influenced ones, but there's also others ones, especially below Ethiopia and Malia next to them, there's quite a few factions, or well, communities which could be represented. And same thing for South America. It's just not the Incas, the Tupis, the Mapuche, which are could be possible because, for example, Cherokee, Iroquois, and all those other wonderful communities that could be also represented in Age of Empires 2. It's just a matter how balanced and good it might be and unique, not just constantly copy paste. Question 15. If you would instantly change or add one feature to Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition Scenario Editor, what would it be? Now, the ability to use my mouse to drag stuff around instead of using arrow buttons. That is something I agree as well. It will be very fun to do that. For example, maybe mouse wheel or something too, or something else. But it's also another different opinion, and I think a mandatory one to do. As for question 6, are you currently working on any custom campaign or scenario, and are you willing to share some juicy information about it, or would you rather keep it to yourself for now as you keep on cooking? Now he says this: I feel like the Great Plains, interior plains of the North America is pretty unlocked to the Eurasian steppe. If I ever return to creating AoE content, I will like to create a campaign themed around the idea. Now, honestly, I agree with that, and once again, there's not much enough campaigns around that regard, because the northern plains of America, be it around Canada or current day America, these tribes, like I said, are not being represented enough. Only in Age of Empires 3, and that is just pity. Many people will argue, well, yeah, we don't have enough sources. I'm sorry, but there's enough sources to at least cook something up. I'm sorry to say that. That also mentions there's still so much cultures around there which needs a more representation, and of course needs to get a bit of a heads up to, give the people more value as well, because they're just being so devalued at the moment to certain people and all that, and they deserve it, especially since they're being oppressed through current modern day. And of course, we don't want to make it too political inside these gaming things, but we would definitely like to see a variety, of course, as we all enjoy different new stuff as well. As humans, we enjoy imaginations, we enjoy inventions, and this is something that has a lot of potentials around that area, in my opinion, of course, and different places as well throughout the world, because like we said, Lower Africa, for example, South Africa, North America has a lot of history that could be told. The areas around Australia have a lot of history that could be visited and told. The areas around Tibet, there's a lot of history that can be told and done. And like I've also said, Vikings should be just 3 separate factions. For example, Norwegians, Danes, and Swedish, along with Finnish, should be represented diversely. And there's a lot more things I could just blabber about, but let's just stop over here to not get a detract from our interview over here. But like I said, it is definitely something nice. And I highly would encourage you to try something out like that. But I would question how, because like I said, there's not much skin over or structures to do it. The only thing that you could do is just try to mix like a little bit of Aztec, Maya, and Inca, along with Mapuche, Tupi, and Mapuche, Tupi, Inca, and damn it, I forgot the other civ. Frick. Mapuche, Tupi, what was the other? Frick, I forgot. Well, whatever. The other civilization. Either way, we're gonna move to the other thing question. You could definitely try to mix those stuff and make a campaign, I guess. But like we've said before, we need more of these kind of maybe mods for reskins and all that. And I guess you can do it because you're definitely, how should I say, ambitious. Question 17, is there something you'd like to say to the community? RTS games haven't been really popular since the turn of the millennium, so it is really neat to see the creator community for such a game still going to strong after 60 years here have a fist bump. Exactly, man. Exactly. Now, this is why, in my opinion, um, strategy RTS games have not been very much popular because there's a lack of properly laid out game with unique mechanics, balanced, neat competitive ones, and that is what has been since the past. Because, like I said, Age of Empires, Stronghold, along with the Command and Conquer series, have been one of the most successful ones. Right, the first few, especially with Stronghold Crusader, Command and Conquer Generals, Zero Hour, or any of the other like Red Alert, and then you also had Age of Empires overall with second one. These ones have been the heart of the community, and after a while, not much happened with those. People wanted it to continue getting more different things because they want to have something new. But afterwards, Firefly released quite a few games, which was kind of a copy paste and not very much unique, but people wanted it differently. And some of them, their series did not really feel very balanced. And that is something that we can see even in Age of Empires. Like, I'm sorry to say, Age of Empires 4, like, I still kind of bring myself to play through that in a competitive way. I still think Age of Empires 2 still has that place in my heart, be it like due to nostalgia reasons and a reason for me growing up. But still, Age of Empires 4 does not beat Age of Empires 2 in my opinion, because it still does not feel that much unique, but it is very more simplified compared to Age of Empires 2. And oh yeah, by the way, Warcraft 3 and Starcraft still beat hard, but those games have not really got much of diversity, even though the competitive side still is going through hard, and there are other ones that are coming around. But overall, there's like a lot of more influx of new games coming up on RTS games. But whether they're very good or not is another debate. I'd say there are very few, but I don't think their potentials have been ousted much, honestly, and that's just something which is really concerning. And within these 26 years, I have not really, yeah, how should I say, seen the light yet. They're like not seen the light yet, or like seen the end of the tunnel. I do see the light, but I've not been able to get out of it, and I need a little bit of a hand over there from potential creators and studios over here too. But that is what we'll maybe see in the future. Like I said, I'm still waiting to see what Stronghold Next is going to be. I'm still waiting to see how Age of Empires, along with Microsoft, is going to continue on forward. And I'm also still eager to see if there's any other studios that are still willing to compete in here. Especially Sega and CA with Medieval 3, because like I said, they're cooking, but whether it's gonna be tasty is still a question, because even their series were very good, but sadly it started to become very frustrating on how they have also been fighting with its community too. But yeah, definitely a big fist bump for you and anyone else over here who feel the same way, and if not, feel free to write what you think about this. But I'm gonna move on now. Question 18: is there a way people can contact you, like other content creators or those in the community who played your campaign and wanted to offer their thoughts, opinions with some constructive feedback, perhaps? Now, he says, I'm on Steam most. You can also contact me on YouTube. Make sure to comment on relevant videos or Discord, but I don't log into those servers as often. Commenting on my uploads can work as well. I mean, I learned about your interview request through a comment you made on the Age of Empires Kings of Heaven's website. However, I think it would be better to comment on my thread on the officials forums instead. Well, that is the thing. I have never found a way to get through your Steams, right? Because like there's no way I could see like any kind of thing, and it hasn't come to my mind to see even if you had like a YouTube yourself, because I don't really think many of these creators do that too. And for the Age of Kings, Heavens, well, that was like one of the main websites with lots of campaigns. Like if I'm gonna ever try to also revisit that website and make a lot of videos about the Age of Empires, like vanilla, or even a HD edition with them out of custom campaigns. I mean, I think I'm gonna probably need to spend quite a few years to go through that content too, and I'm not gonna bother with that. Maybe for now, but I never thought about making a comment or on any of those threads. Maybe official ones, but I don't know how to do that. I think I'm gonna need to ask you or anyone else how to do that. But then again, I think the best way would be either Steam or Discord, in my personal opinion. And that should be, like I always advise, if you ever create these kind of campaigns in these mods, please leave a way to contact people. For example, here, it will always be good, or even an email would be very good as well, right? And I understand that you do not always look at it, but whatever platform you use more should be named out somewhere, especially if you create it. It's like like I said, you're an artist, right? You're creating something. You should always have a way to contact yourself below in a form of a signature, and that is what you have to do by naming, for example, like you said, my Steam. That is what I use often. Then you write down your Steam name or your Discord name, or perhaps even your YouTube name down there. But like I said, it was really difficult for me to reach you, and I wish I was able to reach you as quicker as possible, because it was a real pleasure meeting you so far, as we've mutual opinions, and you seem like a pleasant guy with some great vibes over there. To also mention that reading through your questions and the answers, like, man, you definitely sound like someone like me. So yeah, but that's just my point of view, and we're gonna move on to the next question, guys, which is 19. If someone considered playing on the custom campaign or scenario in Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, which one should it be and why? Now, he says, as mentioned earlier, I recommend Doi Hung 2's Rebirth of the Coliseum scenario. It's a roguelike scenario where you fight a series of 1v1 duels, and at the end of each round, you upgrade your stats. And that's very interesting. It sounds like Swords and Sandals, right? If you're someone like me, who, when he was young, around like middle school, at the age like what, 16, 14, 15 even, or even 18, you'd go to a browser and you just play these kind of games. Like even here around Netherlands, the famed Habba Hotel kind of game, or the famed RuneScape game, especially the old one, was very famous to play through, or any kind of other games where you just could have had fun, of course, as well. So yeah, I definitely commend this. It's nice. I've not really played through it myself, but I maybe will try to do it off stream and all that. It definitely sounds nice. Now when you think of a 1v2 in AoE 2, you probably are thinking about something like the tournament from El Cid campaign. Well, Doing Home 2 scenarios make combat far more immersive, giving you a player a stamina bar that is drained every time you move or attack. Not only is the gameplay engrossing, but some of the presentation is really well done. I remember Warlefant enemy causing the screen to shake when it's attacked. Now that's very awesome. That's very awesome. And that's very cool. And I think there's many mechanics which you can cheese out, of course. But yeah, I'll definitely try that out for sure. Question 20. Roughly how much time does it take for you to create a full scenario or campaign from idea to release? I believe the Galaxy campaign probably took no more than months to create, though I've had the idea of the campaign for a while. Okay, that's interesting. Because if it took you a month, then I only wonder like how long did you like spend per day, because some people would really take like more than months to create, especially if it's a campaign. And I think due to the experience from other games that you've created, like campaigns and all that, the maps, you've been able to do it a lot more swifter compared to the previous creators in my opinion. But that's really quick in my opinion, very commendable. Question 21. What keeps you motivated to keep creating, especially during long or difficult projects? Now, this is what he says. The chance that whatever I'm creating right now might be enjoyed by others. I'm pretty big by others is a pretty big motivation for me. Now, that's definitely something we have also been able to relate within, well, relatable for other creators as well. You know, the motivation of people looking up to you, because as we've all spoken with Lorenzo, being an artist is something unique because you have very nice perspectives of imagination which people look up to or can even relate to and commend to as well. So it's very good, and being motivated by people appreciating your works like Broken Torpedo or Black Knight has said, even Christophorus and on Ozzy as well. So on that we can definitely agree with everyone else over here too. Another reason I was able to stay motivated during Gyasi creation was that I already posted some tutorials and demos on the official forums that convert features I wanted to incorporate into campaign. In addition to learning new tricks, working on those demos and tutorials helped clarify my visions for the campaign. Also, the fact that I had already released something even loose related to my project was in itself a motivation factor. Finally, as long as they are salvageable, I don't think leaving projects incomplete. That is something I fully agree. Never leave something that is not finished, honestly, because it's like wasting a good effort, right? Like whenever you're I'm gonna take again something about cooking. Whenever you've made like a salad, would you leave it wasted? No. You're just gonna continue eat of it, but on that side you'll just make something else along with it. For example, nicely cooked, half-cooked meat, for example. And that is what I highly advise and is commendable. Question 22. Have you ever knowingly bent or ignored history to make a scenario more fun? Where do you draw the line? My campaigns are entirely fictional, but if a scenario takes place over a large area, I make sure it resembles real-life geography. For example, all the Bahmia Islands in Douglas Gyasi for the men missions are shaped and arranged like their real-life counterparts. On the other hand, I think geographical accuracy is less important if a scenario is set on some random battlefield, where the main focus is gameplay. In those cases, I just use trees and terrain that would be appropriate for the region it sets in. Now that's something I very agree, and I think it's pretty cool. Because I didn't really thought about it now that you mentioned it in the Florida missions, the shapes and arrangements like that are in real life. That's really interesting. As for question 23, what was the single hardest thing for you to learn in the scenario editor? And he says that stealth missions for the Rise of General Possad campaign is a very tedious process because when you enable, disable, and then re-enable a timer, the timer does not reset. Instead, the timer will continue from where it left off. This means you have to create timer triggers for each guard. Overall, I ended up creating 4 triggers for each guard. Horrible, man. Yeah, I think I've also noticed that when I was also testing together Wanna Be a Hero in his area campaign. I think that also happened with the spell casting as well. That was really weird. So he had to create some different triggers as well with it. I think. I'm not sure because again, I'm not a creator and all that. But that's just really pain in the ass and all. But yeah. Question 24. Have players ever solved or broken one of your scenarios in a way that you didn't expect? Now, he says the matter of survival scenario from Gyasi campaign is meant to be climactical battle, where wave after wave enemies attack you as you try to complete the objectives objectives. Once Reaver, however, managed to beat the scenario in under 8 minutes by loading all their soldiers onto siege towers and make beelines towards the Sultan and Fitoras. For some reason, I never thought to add a wall around all those targets. that sounds horrible. That's like a quick way to beat honesty and very cheesy honestly, but hey, it is done and that is possible. So it's a nice way that they've been able to impress you, even me, honestly, in beating this mission. But honestly, it is possible. Like, look how Troy was beaten. So honestly, don't change or bother with doing that. You know, it's a nice way to go forth with. Question 25. What kind of feedback or recognition means the most to you as a creator? Seeing streamer or people not just playing my creations but discover the small details I put in them means a lot to me. First of all, it was really cool seeing the best AO2 players in the world figuring out all the potentials lake replacements in my Nomad Lake map scripts. That's true. I think people can definitely make a lot of how should I say, notes, or just, you know, mix something up to chemistry with your maps over there as well, because I've also seen that happening in many of those lake maps. But like I said, it was only for me late to also be notified about this from other people, because, you know, people gossip a lot, like, hey, this creator, or well, creator or streamer has done this and this and this, and then they mention like, hey, I know that guy, and that was you. So yeah, but it's very cool, and I think it's also very something to look up to, and it's great recognition. As for question 26, do you keep any sort of notebook, Excel sheet for fixes or future updates, perhaps other creations you had in mind? Now, you said, yes, I do have a world building notes related to the universe my campaigns are set in. Okay. Because like I said, not many people keep this up, but it's very important in my opinion to be more a perfectionist, since you guys are artists and definitely could use a little bit of a leg up in regards of keeping things in mind and for future projects as well. So yeah. It says, do you have any questions for me? I avoid giving any defeat enemy X objectives in the Douglas Kelsey campaign because I felt like that type of objective was... wait, what? Hold on. Now, this is also, by the way, the last question I asked him, and that is like, do you have any questions for me? And his answer is this. I avoid giving any defeat enemy X objectives in the Douglas Kelsey because I felt like that type of objectives was overdone and made scenarios nothing more than glorified random map matches. Do you have any advice or examples on making defeat enemy objectives more interesting? Well, in my opinion, there's not much. Well, here's something I personally like. Okay, capture the points kind of gameplay is very nice. Like, that is what I feel like is very great way of going forward, for example, or making campaigns similar to like I said, these kind of capture the point kind of games are very good because we can see a big influx of people enjoying that in Company of Heroes, or game like Ancestor Legacy, or games like Rise and Fall of Civilizations as well, where you like capture territories and all that. These kind of games are very amazing. Or Empire Earth. That's another one of those golden games where these kind of mechanics are respected, right? Because whenever you capture these kind of things, you feel like you're growing an empire, and then you start going forward. That is why I also highly advise to make these kind of objectives, because empires rose not only through conquest but also vassalization and tributary states as well. And that is something you've also mentioned too. So making some kind of these campaigns would be cool and also historically accurate, because I've seen so many campaigns with great figures where I've like seen a lack of vassalizing, be it in the original ones or custom campaign ones. So trying to force another state into vassalization and have them fight alongside with you is not only cool, but also makes you feel like, yeah, I'm a proper conqueror, I'm moving forward. Many people will be like, yeah, well, that's boring, you can just quickly, easily win this and all that. I mean, try it out. You can also try to balance it out as well, right? And another great way to have them defeat them is like making side objectives, right? For like for example, for sieges, when you're gonna siege battles and you're gonna try to starve them out, for example, in Alexander the Great campaign, when he was besieging one of the Indian cities or something, try to not like have them reach supply lines, or just do like a war of attrition kind of gameplay as well for sieges. But if it's going to be battles, like try to hit them from behind. Another great example when they did in Alexander game, Alexander's campaign, where you just hit the supply lines and just beat them through there. Like there's so many more ways and advice that you could take from there, especially from different games as well too. Or for example, in Command and Conquer Generals, you had that mission where you just arm up some peasants and they come towards you together in war. But as you go there, you have to try to beat some enemies on the way, and then you just go for the main base. It is the same thing you could do in these campaigns too. It's the same thing what many of those historical campaigns lack, right? Like there's so many examples that I could give, but it depends also on which person you're gonna do it and which community, because yeah, it depends on the situation overall. But like I said, I can't think of so many things and blabber on so much. This is my main thought about it, because it does not have to be constantly, yeah, kill one enemy, you have to destroy everything. Why not just focus them on their main bases, for example, a palace, or just a few castles, and the enemy will surrender. Or when they run out of food, for example, they won't bother anymore, right? That is something good. Or whenever they breach the gates, they will stop and surrender after you kill some certain units, for example. That is also a very nice, commendable feature, but it's also difficult to with according to the triggers, especially if you're a beginner. These kind of missions are also very interesting to go forth with. And here's another thing, another big advice, like last but not least, and I will never stop saying this. I will go back and literally show it here. When we go to the Chronicles, go to the campaign, and Alexander the Great. Now, not Wrath, but I think it was it this one? I think, yeah, the city at the world, at the end of the world. You don't have to be constantly making a defeat the enemy kind of campaign, right? You can also make this an entire city building game in how should I say, what do I call it, RTS game, because real-time strategy game, okay, does not have to be constantly also on defeating objective, because like I said, many of you guys want to be innovative and want to have different ways of portraying it and not copy paste, because those things that I've mentioned are actually present in other games or custom campaigns, but it would not hurt to create them, but then in a different way or a different community, because it would still offer a different taste. But I cannot stop stressing out that these kind of things surely take a lot of effort to make, especially with the triggers, but at the same time is very respective to history, because Alexander made it a nice, wonderful city at the Saltian valleys, and the same thing happened also, for example, in Samarkand with Timur, because many people always portrayed that guy as a butcher, a strict guy. Sure, he did that, but that guy created a big city in Samarkand. He plundered a lot of things, he took out big scholars, and he made such a nice center in Samarkand, which is something the people could do, and that is also what we have also seen with Alexander. And this is what I think the developers have done well, and it's something what anyone could do. It's a matter of time, it's a matter of skill, and it's also a matter of will. So this is something you could do too, right? Because this would also end the enemy, and there's no timer, because like I said, timer is just gonna also offer stress. And when the person also has to go fight against three different enemies around this campaign, I think, mission, it's just gonna not be a pleasant time. Like we've mentioned, you don't want to over stress the person over here, because it's just gonna make you feel very, you know, reluctant to try it even out as well. And another good idea would be for another defeat an enemy X way, right? Is be like converting from, for example, the Age of Empires 1 mission where you just start up with the one priest, you convert a few things and go forward from that. That's also a nice little way. Or just, right, you're gonna need to try to defeat one large army, but like Timur, you start with a small band of raiders, you start raiding, you start to get loyal tribesmen, you grow. You want to give that feeling, not constantly make it like a death match, but from there on you want to go forward. But that again is like a nomadic kind of theme. If you're gonna be a tribal nation, for example, somewhere in South America or Central America, try to unite the tribes, form confederations, offer tribute, offer different diplomatic relations. Like, add that. Why is there not much of these kind of campaigns present or elements? Because it all depends on triggers, and if people are able or willing to that, that is what I feel like is matters, especially in Africa. Like you mentioned, you would like to also have some different African kingdoms because they will also present, especially for example the Malians. The Malians conquered a lot of city-states, but also made them into vassal states too, and they went forward toward. And it is the same thing with, for example, the Ottomans, right? They grew, but they made a lot of like, not just only took over the loyalty of the Beyliks, or made little vessels. I forgot the name what they called it, but they also made a lot of little vessel states, and they were able to come forward. They could always swap, and they can go forward. It's something, for example, that we lack to see in many of those, campaigns. Even for example, the French, well, French too. Like French was not entirely, how should I say, united only until like a very late stage, around the 15th or 16th century. Like until that, they had a lot of vassal states because they belonged to those nobles, right? Or it's the same thing with the nobles in Russia, for example, or in the Chinese area, right? There were also a lot of different city states too. Same thing around Siam area or India, right? There's like so many things that I've also mentioned and things that you could do, but all depends on which historical area you're gonna focus, which time, and how you want to portray these campaigns. But there's so many different ways, so I cannot fully answer it. But I definitely have give you quite a few ideas on what you could do. Honestly, I think, and you could definitely try to take some inspiration from these kind of games. Like I said, Ancestor Legacy, Company of Heroes, Rise and Fall of Civilizations, Command and Conquer, Empire's Dawn of the Modern World, Empire Earth, or even just a little book or even a movie from any historical figure, or even a YouTube video can definitely offer you a different perspective on how you could defeat an enemy, be it in a siege or a battle. And like I said, definitely try this one out, because in my opinion, I definitely like this kind of thing because it does not have to be constantly defeat an enemy, even though it's a strategy game and people do not really want, like you've said, be constantly in a skirmish campaign. We also want to build like cities and all that, be it on our own or be it on the AI side. For example, this is what Cat Scientists have done very well too with his Lionheart campaign. Lionheart, or Henry the Lion, I think, in his Mission 5, I think, where he also tried to take over 5 city-states, make them bigger by building universities, temples, and all that, and that's just very good to see, and then you eventually you win through there. So this is another different way, and hope this also answers your question. And as Elias also mentioned, like here's the list. It's big, and I've taken a lot of time to think, even organize one. So for that, I really treasure and am grateful for you for doing that, and thank you as you have created such a nice, campaign with uh, these 3 wonderful scenarios, which I highly would advise everyone to try out as well, especially Douglas Gyasi, the Golden Chancellor. and you for your effort and of course time, and everyone for those who have stayed around here to take heed of my opinions and thoughts, along with that of our fellow creator over here. And do you want to recommend something or mention it yourself? Feel free to write down in the comments box below, or join my Discord server so we can have a chit chat about it, because Sn0wsh00 is there too. And did you enjoy the video? Drop a like and a subscribe if you would like to, if you're new and would like to support this channel. And with that said, guys, I'll be seeing you guys in my next video. And once again, thank you for listening too. And I'll see you all later.